Hello, my name is Andrew, and I go by Andrew Arcana here on YouTube because I was moderating at a tarot stream here, and I did not want my full name present in that space, so I changed the last name out to Arcana just for my own privacy and safety. I am primarily a tarot enthusiast, and I'm curious about its history, and I've been reading on and off since about 2010, and I had a very strong renewed interest come in late 2019. This is going to be mostly audio only. I'm in a situation where it's very difficult to get video, let alone good video, so I apologize for this, but I do have some nice recording equipment. And on that note, even the Andrew Arcana also relates to my musical projects, which I am just a hobbyist. It's just for fun. But it's a word that makes sense in both contexts here in these spaces and in my musical spaces. One thing to point out that I'm kind of ad-libbing here is that when I was a teenager, my friends and their parents would loan me their books on different ideas related to what would be called paganism or occultism, from everything from palm reading with a very structured outlook, things that you would find in tarot actually, to things like astral projection, shamanism. It basically the 90s Llewellyn catalog and a couple of older books. But lately, my participation in the online space has been primarily in forums for tarot readers. Here on YouTube, I'm generally more of an audience member, which started with my 2019 reintroduction to everything. Between 2010 and 2012, I also ran a podcast that was a blend of fiction and tarot, where tarot cards would actually inspire the next story. That's kind of me, where I came from, and where I'm at right now. So let's go. Section 1, Impact on Community. What is my personal reasoning, inspiration, behind sharing my practice online? Well, I want friends to talk to. I can have serious talks with only a few people in my personal life. Their perspectives and their practices are generally going to be different from my own, but we know enough about each other that the overlap kind of makes it fun to talk. But still, people I don't see as often as I'd like, and yeah, we're adults. It's tough sometimes. So coming online means having access to more people more often. What am I looking to achieve by participating? Do I seek to educate, learn, or connect? My style is to generally share my admittedly nerdy view of tarot with anyone who might benefit from it. And yes, I am also looking for friends and community. I'll have a little bit more of that sharing coming up. How do I believe social media as a whole has impacted the community? In regards to tarot, I'd say there's a twofold situation. More people do feel welcome in spaces, and you can find some occasional gems of really, really deep information. And those are the positive sides. The downside, the biggest one I see, is deconstructionism. And this deconstructionism in tarot comes with some very negative side effects. One of the things that I believe in is learn the rules so that you know which ones to break. I've seen this quoted to artists, I believe even to a Dalai Lama. Learn the rules first so you know which ones to break. I'm all for breaking the rules, but with a foundation. And I have taken some very strong negativity at times, only at times, for suggesting looking into books that cover a certain topic. I'd say that the answer to their question would go too deep for a forum post. I'd suggest here's some books, here's some authors to get you started. And sometimes talking about either reading something in depth or more giving praise to the old ways, even if somebody's asking to explain the old ways, giving praise to pre-social media practices can get you just a very strong negative reaction if you say that at the wrong time in front of the wrong people. The social media teaches you, especially in tarot, drop how many cards you want on the table, or better yet, bash your deck together until cards fly out. use your intuition only. Don't bother learning book meetings for cards. The old ways are just described as this hindrance to doing it properly, which, again, I'm for breaking the rules, but at least know why. And people have never actually seen a human being spread their cards on a table or spread their cards between their hands and gently lay down however many cards are needed for the tarot reading. People have never seen someone use a specified tarot spread that says this card in this position means this. This card in this next position means this next thing. These positions have meaning. So I do see a lot of new readers kind of coming in on hard mode, but it looks like it's easy mode, and they end up with a lot of questions. And of course, the final thing is not anything new to tarot, but it gets asked. What does my crush think about me today? And I'm going to say this as something resembling a human male. If you want to know what your crush thinks, and the crush is generally a masculine person, ask him to lunch on a day off. It's low stress, it's low pressure. It could be a date, it could not be a date. It doesn't matter. It's that low pressure thing where you get to talk to that person and that person gets to talk to you, and that's how you're going to find out. Ask the person to lunch. How do I think social media platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube have each impacted education and sharing of information? I very much believe that the short form and the flashier content creators have accidentally been teaching habits that you wouldn't learn from mentors or learn from instructional materials or learn from any of the traditional means. And I don't think that these habits are always good. Again, I see people slamming their cards together to get jumpers only. That looks great on social media. It can be fun, exciting, but yeah, I didn't see people do that before before there were tarot readers all over YouTube. But again, there are some people providing some really, really strong gems of information and knowledge. They typically had been very well studied before they even thought about starting the YouTube channel, and they are sharing some incredible information. So I think as long as people are going to teachers, there can be some good information there. But if people are just learning by the example that they see, it's not so good. Is consuming witchcraft content, or in my case, tarot content, is consuming this content becoming a substitute for practice? Pick a pile. Topic 2, influencer authenticity. Out of what I share on social media, how much of it is staged versus reality? Well, I'm not even showing anyone my face right now. When I do have videos, when I do a live stream, my face is in a corner, usually poorly lit, and any well-lit thing, the majority of the screen is my table that I'm drawing cards on, opening a box, things like that. I don't go out of my way to be unauthentic, but I do filter certain things out. Not this slip of the tongue. But the fact is, about half of my life is currently being stored in a tiny bedroom. I don't have that nice corner to shoot and film in, and things just, I'm working toward that better situation where I can hopefully set up the YouTube corner. Have I ever encountered or heard of grifters in our community? Do I recognize them? What are the significant signs of grifters in the community? In tarot, it gets real easy to spot. I have seen so many scammy accounts and private messages on Instagram. It usually looks like a real person's account with a lot of extra dots and underscores in the name. I've seen low-effort tarot decks made from either public domain art or generative artificial intelligence. We have been seeing a resurgence in all of this. And there are people who are definitely trying to make money either by selling a legitimate, mostly legitimate product that maybe doesn't have the knowledge put into it that I would personally like to see. But we also have a lot of scammers. The signs, in my case, are usually a guarantee of accuracy during a reading. Somebody says 100% accurate all the time, and they're selling a reading on Etsy. That might be a sign not to get a reading from them. The other sign is whether or not it includes helpful guidance. Going back to that question above, does my crush like me? I think a lot of responsible readers would also either rephrase it or add on a second question. How can I be emotionally and visibly open to attract a healthy relationship? And the final sign that I haven't really seen anybody talk about, but I haven't watched as many of these as I'd like either, was social media trolling. There is a very popular person in my space who spent years writing social media posts that came across as hurtful. This person is extremely knowledgeable. This person is extremely hardworking, and there is so much that I wanted to respect about them, and I do actually. This person is doing so many of the things that I love seeing done in the practice. But from time to time, over the last several years, it seems as though they went fishing for that one thing they could say that would get them the most favorable amount of social media attention from the greatest number of people. Some of it was already starting to make me uncomfortable when this person posted one thing that just came across as hurtful. It went against my personal practice. It went against my my beliefs as a human being and how we should treat each other regardless of any other kind of practice. And it very, very definitely touched on a huge amount of past pain that I had been through growing up, and even into even through to today. And finally, this thing this person said even seemed to go against the products they sell. There are products out there on the shelves with this person's name on them, and the product being sold was in no way, shape, or form in alignment with the thing in this social media post. And I'm sorry I'm harping on this, but I just don't want, I'm not naming them because I don't want to pick fights. But I have seen people in the forums and the spaces where I hang out who said that this person's other social media posts had come across as incredibly hurtful in other ways. And I'm really not sure if this creator cared that they hurt people, because it got them the attention. And now if they do have a new product out on the market, it does very well. And people I even think of as heroes admire this person's work. And that's, again, this person is incredibly smart, incredibly hardworking, incredibly knowledgeable, has put in the study and work, and the books and things for sale are probably wonderful. But was it worth hurting someone to get to that point? So yeah, I'm going to say that fishing for social media attention needs to be considered in this anyway, because this person otherwise is someone I would love to respect to no end. Next question. Do I think there is an element in censorship in online spaces? Do I decipher what is appropriate to share online versus to keep privately? Is this based on social media etiquette or personal preference? Well, I don't write about any of this on my personal Facebook feed, first of all. I have friends in person who have said they are afraid of tarot cards. And so I'm not going to scare them. But as far as being in these spaces too, I think the same censorship and self-censorship applies that you would in any community. Sometimes, the phrase intrusive thoughts is popular right now, and I kind of like it. Sometimes you just don't let those intrusive thoughts out into the public, no matter who you are, whether you're in these spaces or not. But sometimes you also see somebody lay out a trap. They say something, and you know that if you ask for clarification, or if you say that comes across as a little messed up or off topic, that's a trap, and you are going to take some bruises from a lot of people if you even go near the initial statement. So you scroll past, or you unfollow the person, or you block them or something. But yeah, sometimes there are parts of a personal practice that you're uncomfortable revealing. There are parts of what I do that I don't feel I'm qualified to speak about. And I also kind of feel like even if I was qualified to speak about, I would still say that it's everybody's individual experience with these things that matters more than anything I could say. So I do censor myself on that, because I think everybody should either come to these things on their own, or not have my experiences and my biases affect their experiences when they do find it. It's sometimes better to let and encourage people to have these to explore this on their own. Sorry? What tools are helpful to decipher misinformation, and how can we as a community prevent widespread disinformation? Well, I'm a fan of books. I'm a fan of old books. I'm a fan of new books that pay tribute to the old books, or bring them up to a more modern language, or provide an introductory text to the older books. Again, learn the rules so that you know which ones to break. When you have that foundation, it's really easy to keep misinformation to a minimum. And if you do sprinkle in the new books that talk about the old ones, the new ones will tell you what the old ones had wrong. Because that is definitely a thing too. So read, study, listen to new voices, look at the old voices, just broaden your mind, let it fill you. And that's selfish time. I'm going to talk about this later probably, but that is selfish time to turn off all of the screens and just be alone with some words on a page, to decompress, to technically be engaged in whatever your practice is. And I mean, it's ultimately the doing of the practice, but this is still some quiet time to both recharge yourself, become smarter, and yes, to fight misinformation in your own circles. Preventing misinformation can be as easy as speaking kindly. The best results I've had in the forums I go to have come from presenting the information I had as an alternative. And I present it as kindly as I can. I will say something like, most readers I have seen use this other method. Be gentle with them, be kind, show the benefits of this other approach, and always present it as an alternative, and wish the person well, both first in your heart and, if appropriate, with your words. How does a large following impact the perception of the creator? Does this immediately make them an expert, or are there other assumptions as to why they may have a large following? In strictly tarot spaces I've seen, large followings tend to become more parasocial than authoritative. However, new readers will see these large tarot channels, especially like collective reading channels, and new readers will pick up the habits of those collective channels. The content creator is not telling anyone you have to shuffle your cards this way, but new readers see that, and that's their only point of reference. But for the most part, I think it's generally more parasocial in these. And as, again, a nerd and a bookworm, there are related channels to tarot that have, simultaneously earned the right to speak with authority. I don't know why the word simultaneously came up, but they have earned the right to speak with authority. And I'm going to name them because this is hopefully a very positive thing. Esoterica and Angela's Symposium. I'm going to talk about them more a little bit later on, but both of those people have earned their authority. So it's a mix of both. How does one maintain the balance of authenticity and content creation? Well, you keep the filters on. I mean, filters help make the nicer product. You didn't want to hear me cough a few minutes ago. I should have edited that out, but I didn't. But you keep the filters on, go ahead. But be open. Be honest, there are filters on. You can't see my face because I'm currently in a room with half of my life in it. All right, next subject. Topic 3, I guess. Imposter syndrome and fear of missing out. When I follow other creators in the community space, does it make me feel genuinely inspired and empowered? Or does it create feelings of FOMO, fear of missing out, and feelings of being less than? Well, I rarely feel that FOMO lately. I have the tools I need to be engaged in a practice right now. I'm very comfortable with the tools. There are 2 decks. I'm looking at them on my shelf right now, and I had once only hoped to maybe see one in person, maybe at a store or from a friend's collection, and just see them in passing, and that would be it. But one of those decks is very important to me. And really just having the one that I do use would be enough. The bookshelf behind me is enough. I need to finish reading some of these books. There's a whiteboard of daily tasks. I buy them literally for $1 at a dollar store. And I've got some poster tack, and I just stick them up at my door whenever I need another one. Because this gets a little more complex as it goes on. And even those tools, more than I need. 90% of what I need is the daily exercise of just practicing it. Do my day ahead spread. Read more, learn more. Do the other things that I've begun to do that are related to this. And being that I am a nerd and a bookworm, my wish list, as it were, is made mostly of physical books, and there's not a time limit on those. Even if they go out of print, there's always a used book market. The only time I feel a little bit of fear of missing out is from crowdfunded tarot decks or small run independent tarot decks. And generally, I'm a fan of the creator, and I want to support them. And being a fan means I also have had some insight into why they made the decks a certain way. So I'll feel a little bit of fear of missing out if there's a time limit. But most of the time, no. I just know that it's up to me to put away the distractions and to do the things that I came here to do. If I experience the fear of missing out, this is the next question, has it ever left me feeling vulnerable to be taken advantage of financially or otherwise? An example would be the need to purchase the latest popular product or book to fit in. If I even start feeling taken advantage of, I look at my shelves and I remember that I have what I need. The discipline to practice daily, again, is at least 90% of my process at this time. And I've got to be honest, most of the shiny new things are geared toward beginners. So it's, again, kind of a rare thing for me. When practicing my craft, in this case tarot, do I find myself comparing what I do to what I've been seeing people do online? I'll say this, that sometimes I do, but it's not in a bad way. Sometimes I'll do something extremely frugal, and I'll think to myself, the author of this will probably approve. Sometimes I will feel like people are doing it right and I'm doing it wrong, but even the authors and the very, very studied content creators who I look up to have set an example that maybe I'm doing things a good way too, that that showing up is really the biggest part at the end of the day. So, and sometimes the authors whose books line my shelves are the same people I'm listening to in live videos online. So yeah, I will compare myself to those authors more than standard content creators, more than pick-a-pile readers, or people who generally review products. But I will compare myself to those authors, even if somebody fills the same space. But I generally think they'd be happy to see that I made something work. In what ways do I combat imposter syndrome? Engage in the practice daily. Stop buying things. Read more books. But again, engage in the practice daily. You'll find out you have what you need. What would my practice look like without the social media influence of other creators? Other community members have pointed me towards some of the resources that are currently foundational to how I look into tarot and how I look into related practices. I would have had to find those resources a completely different way, if at all, if I hadn't been part of those communities. But as it is, I tend to gravitate toward more educated and well-read creators. And yeah, if I had looked at the pick-a-pile collective tarot readers to inform my practice, I don't know that I'd be recording this right now. So, topic 4, capitalizing off community. Do I consider online communities as equally valid to in-person communities? And in general, yes. I was reading 2 lines of my notes at the same time. In-person communities, online communities. Yes, I consider them very often equally valid, but sometimes no. And this one might be a little bit of a surprise. A couple of weeks ago, I did attend a local pagan community gathering, and ultimately it was people shopping for things. I got to speak to the vendors, and the vendors were people who were practicing. They're going to take their stuff home, maybe rest for the night, but they've got their daily practice, and you could talk to them about that. But I had no conversation with anyone unless they were vending there. So when I go online to communities and we're just people throwing notes at each other, I think in that case the online community was even more valid and more helpful. But I also know that there are covens, there are organizations, there are very formalized spaces where the intention is to practice. And I think those can be incredible. Those are probably I don't want to say the most valid, but those can be incredibly helpful, wonderful spaces to a person who benefits from it. Next question. How have online occult/witchcraft, and I'm going to add tarot, communities impacted me as a person and practitioner? At their best, they will keep me excited to keep practicing, to learn that next thing, to do my day ahead spread. I've also made the friends that I was looking for in some regards. And a surprise is if I see somebody ask a question that I know I can answer respectfully and honestly, sometimes helping them out will either teach me something or it will remind me of something that I had been learning and studying and that maybe went in the background as I moved from one topic to the next. So trying to help people ends up helping me too, and that is a really good benefit of online communities. What are some dangers of the current phenomenon of capitalizing off the witchcraft community? Again, from a tarot perspective, one thing we have are bogus love readings on Etsy. That somebody probably has about 20, 30 readings, not even with the cards on them, just a bunch of Microsoft Word documents. Somebody pays them $5 for a reading, they pick one at random and email the reading over. There are scam artists, even online, who will private message someone, say, I feel drawn to read tarot for you. Do I have your permission? And these scam artists, either online or in person, will tell somebody that they're cursed. This poor querent is allegedly cursed, and the scam artist will say that they have the ability to fix that curse, but it's going to cost a lot of money. By the way, querent, how much money do you have? I do think a danger is when a video creator chooses themes that give people false hope. And they do a collective reading based off these themes, generally every day, if not multiple times a day. People who are heartbroken, people who are lonely, people who are feeling, under the weight of the world and going through some of the rougher times of life, end up seeing this content and getting this false hope. And feeling like that reading was only for them, even though there are thousands or tens of thousands or sometimes hundreds of thousands of people who all watch the same thing. And these content creators are playing off the algorithm to get noticed, to get that income, possibly, to get whatever it is that they get out of being seen and being visible. And it really just plays off the emotions of vulnerable people. So yeah, in my space, in tarot spaces, vulnerable people are at risk of falling into this trap of being told that yes, their ex will come back. Yes, there is love around the corner. Yes, they will get that dream job, because those collective readings are providing a benefit only to the content creator. Another thing I think is, and I have to watch myself with this, it is easier to sell an incredibly deconstructed view of tarot than to say that maybe there's some value in the old books and old materials. That no matter how much of a bookworm I am, I will need a intuitive process to tie a reading together. I can spout out trivia about every card in my spread, but if I don't have some intuitive process to make a reading, all I've done is spout trivia about random cards, But I think there's an imbalance, is the word I'm going to use. That I think imbalance in approach is not a huge danger, but it's there. I think it's going to lead a lot of people to ultimately giving up. And yeah, the quiet danger of teaching new readers bad habits: smash your cards together, don't bother with spreads, a new reader buys their first deck. The first spread they do with their first deck is a deck interview. And I have come across people on forums who ask why their new tarot deck hates them. What did they do wrong? They're just starting out. That one's a danger. Let's save the tarot deck interviews for intermediate use, please. Have I been personally affected by this, or have I witnessed someone else be affected? I'm on forums where I see a lot of people get very negatively affected by the ways that people capitalize off tarot and the stereotypes in the community around it. Should there be paid walled communities and online courses? I'm going to say yes to online courses, especially in tarot, where you've got these 78 cards. You have three major traditions, like the sort of Marseille Visconti, the Rider-Waite-Smith, and the Thoth traditions. Yes, especially in Rider-Waite-Smith, where people start. Go ahead and do the courses, explain the cards, show by video example how two cards might resonate and play off each other, and do it with the intent of teaching them explicitly rather than having them learn through osmosis. Now, paywalled communities I'm iffy about, because there is a huge difficulty in paywalled communities. and this isn't related to any subject at all. I was part of a paywalled community for a rock band I really like. And what I saw was that the person who managed to pay the most money into the community, I'm talking extreme amounts of money into this community, this person kind of picked who was and wasn't allowed to say what or what they weren't allowed to say. And I love the band attached to it, but I don't go back to that space. And even here in sort of pagan occult places, I was for 1 month part of a paywalled community, and I saw the exact same thing. 2 people who paid an extravagant amount of money to be part of that paywalled community, by far the 2 highest paying members of the community, had turned it into a place of constant negativity. Like, you could tell people only spoke when things went on topic, like when the topic of this community and the topic of the YouTube channel were the same, people would speak. But for the most part, it was these 2 people with deep pockets airing their grievances about the world. And you know better than to speak up. Again, I talked about traps earlier. If you speak up and say, I'm here to learn about each other's practices, and I'm not getting that because none of this is on topic, you're just going to be taken to school. You're going to take your bruises. So rather than get kicked out by fiat, by these 2 tyrants who ran the community as opposed to the person who technically ran it, I just stopped paying. I canceled after about 2-3 weeks, never went back. So yeah, the highest paying person or the highest paying people can leave the entire community walking on eggshells. Can leave people afraid to speak when we were excited about being part of this paywalled community, and all the reasons we're walking on eggshells are off topic. It's just that whoever paid the most felt the need or entitlement to be a tyrant. So those tyrants, those usurpers, those abusive personality types, they are a threat to paywalled communities. And what I would say is that if you're looking to start a paywalled community, take time before you start the community, before you allow anyone in, get a clear definition of what is on topic, get a clear definition of what is off topic. Be ready for whoever pays you the most money to also be the biggest disruption in the community, and have a plan to deal with that. And it may mean that you have to get rid of the people who are paying the most money in your community, or it may mean that you may have to give the community over to them and have a lot fewer people speaking and taking part in the community. Have those plans to deal with disruptions, especially from people with deep pockets. All right, that was another soapbox. Let's go to the next question. How does one ensure the authenticity of courses, workshops, memberships, etc. as a financial investment? Read reviews. See if anyone on a forum or on YouTube has taken part of this and what their experiences were. And even read the bad reviews, because sometimes somebody will dislike something about an offering, and whatever they disliked will make it perfect for you. Again, we all have different styles and outlooks and perspectives, and you may actually be looking for the perspective that is being offered. All right, conclusions. What are some topics of conversation I'd like to see more of in the community? I do think people should be warmly presented with traditional material, and I'd like to see it expressed in an encouraging and kind way that still looks like an alternative, but with the benefits expressed to it. What are my community needs? Kindness, boundaries, and one of my notes says people who practice similarly to how I do, but I think I want to justify that as to say with the same enthusiasm for growth that I do. I love speaking to people with very different perspectives and practices, even in tarot, because I've learned from them. So kindness and boundaries, and other people who conduct themselves with kindness and healthy boundaries. Where would I like to feel more held and supported? I do know that there are some local in-person resources I could tap into when my circumstances get better. And I do find myself supported by a handful of small channels. I'm going to actually name drop one more. Deep Mind Squared here on YouTube. Really amazing creator. And I feel in online communities, that's probably the one place I feel most supported. Where do I feel like I'm not truly being seen by my community? Even if I say not, it's situational. But I feel like the old ways can be despised, and especially by newcomers who got in through online video platforms, or newcomers who got in through like witchy aesthetic. And all I'd like to do is feel like I'm not being beat up for bringing up old traditions and old books, and the idea of, just putting in the time. Again, like I said, show up daily. Show up daily is, to me, the cure for so many of the bigger issues here. How can we help each other in removing the external peer pressure and growing the community? I just said it. Remind each other that it's the practice that matters most. The tools are nice. The flashy images are nice. I was thinking earlier it'd be fun to have like a cool animation or some sort of really great picture on the screen while I speak, and that would all be nice. But it's when I hit stop on this and I stop recording and I post it, if I'm not doing anything for my practice, it didn't matter. Remind each other that our practices are really what matters, and be excited about that practice. How can we as a community come together with more constructive criticism without it seeming shady or passive-aggressive? Again, I try to present things as an alternative, and I try to present them in the most gentle way possible. And I don't even, when I say an alternative, I mean one of many alternatives. I will say something like, I think this alternative is appropriate because of these benefits, and then I list the benefits. Two inspirations that I have are Dale Carnegie's book, How to Make Friends and Influence People. I believe that's right. And the concept of right speech that was taught to me by a Buddhist lecturer who I would listen to twice a week in a live chat area. I would listen to him twice a week for quite a while in the past few years. So, study that idea of right speech and study Dale Carnegie. And when I do that, when I present, well, you want a good thing, here's something I know that may be an alternative that helps you. When I do that, it never comes across as shady or passive aggressive, because the other thing is, in me, no matter what the words look like, somewhere in me, my thought is, yes, I would like to help this person. This person deserves my best help. But kindness. Basically kindness and encouragement. How can we, as a community, do better when we receive criticism and feedback? Again, same cure to FOMO and so much else. Remember your practice first and foremost. Right? Remember that this is a great place to find community and find other voices, but it's your practice that matters from one day to the next. 2 months from now, you might not remember any part of anything you've seen online that made you mad. But if you've got that practice going every day, it's going to continue building and helping you out. And be willing to learn. If somebody says something that even comes across as negative to you, remember your practice, because maybe they said something that your practice benefits from, and be willing to learn, because it's the practice that matters. Who are some community members that I look up to that are reliable resources and aspirations? Academically, there's a channel here on YouTube, Esoterica. I do enjoy Angela's symposium when one of her topics is of interest to me, but sometimes I enjoy her. I've already mentioned Deep Mind Squared, and I really love hearing Thorn Mooney here on YouTube speak about the social aspects of everything. Thorn Mooney is very probably different from me, but she does remind me of the people I met when she and I were both younger. I don't know her personally, but she talks about that 1990s scene, and she reminds me so much of the people I met back then. And she has a really great way of comparing and contrasting what was happening in the 90s to what's happening now, and even showing some knowledge about what happened even before that time. But really, she's great about comparing this resurgence to the resurgence that we saw in the 1990s. So I love hearing Thorn Mooney speak. Final question. Add any further thoughts, comments, prompt questions of your own, express further points, or offer solutions. Be kind. Be gentle with each other. Be enthusiastic, and share the enthusiasm as much as the knowledge that you have. And just remember that that it's your practice that matters. Yeah. You're upset? Is there something you haven't done today in your practice? Go to that. Because that does matter more than anything I've said. It matters more than anything you'll see on the internet. And I hope that you're able to find the peace and the joy and the things that you're looking for in that. And that's the best way to end it. Be kind, be gentle, and find joy in your practice, please. I think that would solve a lot.